Getting a new job is always a long and dreadful process, especially if you don't know what to focus on. In the past couple of years, having designed multiple recruitment processes for various companies within different industries, I realized that there's one thing above all that you should be focusing on in order to make sure that you're increasing your chances of getting the job that you're applying for. And that is understanding what a competency framework is. So in today's video, what I would like to cover is what is a competency, how does a competency framework work, and how you can utilize that knowledge in order to increase your chances of getting any job. So let's begin. So in my last video, I focused on entrepreneurial behaviors and how you can utilize them in order to get ahead in your career. You can check out the video up here. But what if you're unemployed currently? And if there's one thing that you should be focusing on in order to increase your chances of getting a new job, what should that one thing be? For the last 50 years, companies have been utilizing some kind of a competency framework in order to standardize measuring the performance of their employees. In fact, according to research, 70 to 80% of the Fortune 500 companies utilize some form of a competency framework to measure the performance of their employees or to hire new people. The framework can be utilized for recruitment and selection, for development purposes, and also for performance management. In order to define a competency, an organization usually goes for a thorough job analysis in which they look at the skills, experience, and knowledge that an employee needs in order to perform very well in their job. And as next step, these are utilized in order to define more general behaviors which can account for the expected outcomes of what that person needs to do in their specific role. So you may ask, why is this important? For any interview that you will do with a company, very likely there will be at least some behavioral-based or competency-based questions. If you understand what a competency is and how it's measured, this will greatly increase your chances to respond in the way that is required and getting the job.
Do you have any experience?
No, sir, I have no experience, but I'm a big fan of money. I like it. I use it. I have a little. I keep it in a jar on top of my refrigerator. I'd like to put more in that jar. That's where you come in.
So in order for competencies to be useful, they need to be accurately and objectively measured so that employers can use them to either hire or provide training opportunities to their staff on the right things that they need to develop. So if you're thinking what a competency framework is, it's simply a standardized way of looking at competencies. Most companies will have some kind of a variation of a competency framework, which might look something like this. You can see that in this framework we have 6 competencies that we're looking at, with the first one being communication. So generally you have a definition of what the competency is, and then you will have some kind of a level of proficiency for each individual competency. And the level of proficiency of a competency is essential because that's what companies are going to use to understand what is the minimum requirement that you, as a person applying for a job, should reach in order to get that specific job. And the competencies are generally measured with questions such as, tell me about a time when you've done this, or tell me about a time when you've done that. And these questions are specifically designed for you to provide an answer which will allow the interviewer to score you on what is your level on that specific competency. When you're looking at levels of proficiency of a competency, most of the times you would have a scale that goes from 1 to 5 or 1 to 4, with the lowest level being pretty much, I have no idea what I'm doing, and level 5 being Steve Jobs changing the world type of behavior. So in this specific example regarding communication, you can see that it goes from level 1, starting with developing, to good, proficient, expert, and strategic. What's important to understand is that when you're applying for most jobs, the level that you're required to be at is level 3, which means that you're consistently demonstrating a competency as a proficient level. Okay, so now that I've shared all this information with you, you might ask yourself, so what exactly am I supposed to do with all this? How can I utilize that in order to get a job? The best way to start preparing and utilize the knowledge that you've learned here today is to first of all check the job description that you provided by the company. And what's interesting is that many companies actually have started providing you with the competencies that they're looking for. So in the job description, you might actually be able to see what we want from you is communication, building relationships, and collaboration, for example. And you know those are the things that you should be preparing for. However, at times that might not be the case. So if the competencies are not provided, what you should do is looking for the job description and pick 4 to 6 things that you see they're mentioned multiple times within the job description, because those would likely be the competencies that you're going to be asked about. And what you want to do is write those down and then utilize your knowledge and experience to answer a question which shows how you are exhibiting that specific behavior or competency, at least at a proficient level. I hope you found that valuable. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel in case you haven't yet, and I will see you on the next one.